Good morning, everyone. I hope this finds you well and living your best life in Jesus Christ. Not too long ago, I was talking to a former student who was having what I like to refer to as a midlife crisis, even though he was only in his mid 30s. This young man is a hard worker, but he didn't like school very much, and he made some really bad educational decisions early in his teens and 20s. He was one of those guys that wanted to get working before he left high school, and even though he planned to get training after high school, he just was never able to afford it. When we talked, he was approaching 40 while finding himself with limited earning potential and a dead end job and had lots of responsibilities. A positive thing, though, was that he was and is a good Christian man, being raised in the church and having a firm foundation in the Word in his life, and that was important. He was making sure that he was raising his kids in the faith. But when we talked, you could tell he was struggling to find the meaning of his life. He told me his life was lacking direction and that he was afraid that where he currently was would be where he stayed. I know a lot of people have asked themselves these same questions this young man was asking himself at one time or another. Why am I here? Why am I living the life I am? Is this all there is? What's the purpose of my life? I told him that when we get too concerned with the immediate things in our lives and the pressures of our lives, it's easy to forget why we are the people we are and why we're here. I told him that even though I'm much older, the same questions come back to me again and again in my life. I think it's healthy for a Christian to regularly ask ourselves some questions like this. What is the purpose of my life? Why has God placed me where I am? For example, why has God placed me in this school or in this job or in this church or in this community? Why are we living where we are? Why do I not feel like I'm making a difference? We're not the first people who have asked these questions by any means. These are what philosophers call existential questions because they directly relate to the question of our very existence. The early Christians must have wondered about these things often. I mean, after all, God had called them out of darkness, and they must have wondered why they had to spend their lives as strangers scattered throughout the Roman Empire, as it's described in 1 Peter. What was the purpose of it all? In 1 Peter 2, 9 through 12, the Apostle Peter gives the answer to this question. The key reason why God calls us out of the shadows into this wonderful light is that we may declare God's praises. 1 Peter 2:9 says, "Declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light." God didn't call us to be his children so we could just take up space, so we could just exist. He didn't call us to a life of misery, nor to a life of leisure. God has placed us where he needs us to be at each stage of our lives for the specific purpose of bringing glory to him. A lot of times we look at the past with regret and the future with fear, when we should be looking at the present with thanksgiving and with praise for all that God has brought us through and blessed us with. And even though sometimes it's difficult, we need to remember he has planted us here for a reason. So anyway, I told these things to my dear young brother while suggesting that he was doing a great thing in taking care of his family and making sure his children had a solid moral grounding in the faith. I praised him because this is a rare thing in this day and age. And while I did give him some advice on how he might acquire some training that would further him in the job market, I also counseled him that he should remember to find God's joy in his life every day and to continue to do everything as if unto the Lord. I reminded him that God is not by any means finished with him yet. Someone said, we were made by God and for God, and until we understand that, life will never make sense. Whenever you or wherever you find yourself today, ask God to show you how to declare his praises. Let us continue to bloom and grow where we're planted right now, and remember that where we are today is not the be-all and end-all of our existence by any stretch of the imagination. It's only the beginning. I hope you make today a terrific day. I want you to know that I'm here if you need me, and I love you all.